there's a pull you just can't describe. And you know logically that this relationship is not good for you, but there's just something about this person that you can't leave them. You can't break away. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 ways to break a trauma bond with your toxic partner. And we're going to talk about how you can break this bond for good and protect yourself from future trauma bonds with the tips that I'm sharing today. My name is Lori. If you haven't been here before, I'm a former teacher with a master's in school counseling. I have a certification in transformational coaching. I've been working with people that are struggling, stuck in a toxic relationship, and they don't know how to get out. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you are wanting to get unstuck from your relationship, you want to know more about narcissism and toxic traits, growing your confidence, then you found the right channel. And please, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. It helps push the channel out to other people, especially when you like the video. And please comment below because I read every comment. I'm really interested in your input. I want to know the things that help you, the things that you want to know more about, and share your insight too, because we all grow together. Also share this video with anybody that you think could be in a trauma bond and they need some extra support. So what is a trauma bond? A trauma bond is a psychiatric term, and it is when you are bonded to a person that is abusive to you. So you can think of the famous Patricia Hearst Stockholm Syndrome, where she was caught in a bank robbery scandal. I don't know exactly the details, but somehow she got involved in this. She was kidnapped or something, and then they talked her into robbing banks with them. And it came through this trauma bond, because when you are dependent on another person for your safety and survival, even if they're abusive, then you can get stuck in a trauma bond. So in a relationship, it looks like it starts out with somebody that is being very kind and loving. They love bomb you. They act like the perfect partner. They're the fairy tale romance, the Hallmark movie. And slowly over time, they start to devalue you and criticize, make you feel like you are less than good enough. But then they follow that up with more loving behavior. So it becomes a cycle, and the abuse can be physical, mental, emotional, or even verbal. And what happens when you get stuck in this cycle, it confuses you. It makes you think, does this person love me or do they hate me? Sometimes I think they hate me, but then something will happen and I feel like they really love me. So I'm not sure. It's just so confusing. The whole love bombing in the beginning can take weeks or months. I've even heard of it taking years at times. I feel like that's kind of what happened to me in the past, because as soon as I dated this person for many years, and then when we finally got married, that's when things kind of started slipping. There may have been signs before, but this is when it really started happening. And usually there is some type of large, painful incident that happens that makes you feel like, I don't want to be with this person anymore. You may even think, I'm breaking off this relationship. You may try to break off the relationship, but then they talk you into coming back because they can explain away their behavior. I was having a rough day at work. I just got laid off. My mother's sick, whatever. They have some kind of excuse, and you, being a loving, kind, generous person, you give them another chance because, you believe in the good of everybody. So, like I said, the abuser swoops back in with that loving behavior. They future fake you, where they promise things in the future, like, we're going to buy a house together, we're going to have children together, or, we're going to buy a lake house, we're going to go on this special trip that we had planned together. And, there's always some big giant thing that they promise you is going to happen. So you think, I can hold on a little bit longer. Usually there's some kind of power imbalance between you and your partner. So they may have power over you financially. It could be age-wise. They could have, I heard a story on a podcast the other day, and she was with a psychiatrist, I believe. Psychiatrist or psychologist, I can't remember. So he's the expert in mental health, right? And he's telling her that she's wrong and, she's mistaken. And she believed him because he was the expert. So they could be status in the community that they have over you. Like I said, a higher level of education. It could be a celebrity, or they have some type of power over you where you feel like they know more than you, or you really value their opinion. Sorry for that little glitch. I had to clear up a storage issue. So you really value their opinion for some reason. So like I said before, on some level you understand that this relationship is not good for you, but you feel drawn to this person like you can't get away. And it's just a way that you can't explain to other people. And there is something that has changed in your brain. It's a trauma response. So it's subconscious, and you can't really control it. And I'll tell you what it feels like, because I had a trauma bond with my ex, and it felt like I couldn't get away no matter how much I realized consciously that this person was not good for me. My kids, my family members, my friends were all telling me they had concerns. They were saying there was something not right with this relationship. And I knew it, but I kept making excuses for this person. And, I believed the things that he was telling me, also his excuses for why whatever happened. And I felt this pull to stay with him, even though his behaviors were hurting me more than anyone had ever hurt me before. And his words were saying, I love you, I'm your greatest supporter. The words were amazing. The words were all the things I wanted to hear, but the actions were not. And the actions told me that he didn't really care for me. So there was a lot of confusion in my brain. He woke me up many nights to argue. He would rage at me for hours, and it would be things like, you spent too much money out of my account. You didn't back me up with the kids. You didn't back me up with your family members. You, let me think, what else? I don't know. Anyways, it was all things that I thought, well, I could be better at that. I could, stop spending so much money. even though it was groceries and things that the kids needed, that kind of thing. I could back him up more, and I started to believe him when he said it was my fault. And part of that is because I had heard similar things in the past, and I'm just starting to think that maybe I am slightly ADHD with the attentive part. And so, there were lots of times in my past where I didn't feel like I was the same as other people. I couldn't organize like other people. I couldn't keep up with things the same. So when he told me that I could be doing a better job, I believed him. So eventually I broke that trauma bond, and I will tell you the steps that I took to do it. But what I came to believe was, yes, I can improve, and I was doing all the things that I thought could help me improve. I was taking better care of myself. I was seeking out counselors. I was seeking out coaches. I was reading books. I was watching videos. I was doing all the things, but he was not doing those things, and he was not doing the basic things that a partner does in a relationship. He wasn't making me feel safe around him. He wasn't attempting to repair the harm that was done by his hurtful actions. And by attempting to repair, I mean, he wasn't seeking out any type of support to help him stop doing those things. So, what was I to think? I was to think I wasn't that important. And what happened was I ended up walking on eggshells. I was always watching for, the slightest sign that he was about to blow up. Like, how is his mood today? How did he wake up? Did he set his coffee cup down harder than he normally does? Did he close a door really hard? Did he slam a drawer? All of those things signaled to me that he was in a bad mood and I was about to have a really bad day. So it came down to I didn't trust him with my feelings. Sometimes he could be really thoughtful and loving, but usually that was when somebody else was doing something to hurt me, and he would back me up at that point. But many times when we were in an argument, he would watch me cry. He would continue arguing, even though it was obvious that I was very distraught. That didn't stop the hurtful behavior. So that was really traumatizing to me. And in the end, when you are in a trauma bond, it feels like resignation. Like, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be able to get out of this situation. I feel like I'm stuck with this person. So I might as well make the best of it. It's kind of the point that you get to. I talked about the different powers before, but one of the things is you feel like even if I did try to leave, they would just come after me. I will struggle for some reason. It may be financially. You may be concerned about the kids and what will happen to them. You might be concerned with your community, your religious community. There's all kinds of reasons that this person can have a hold on you. It could be an emotional hold. It could just be that they whittled away so much at your internal sense of self that your confidence is totally shot. You have zero confidence. And then, like I said, like when you're feeling the most down, there will be a point where they make you feel like there's a little bit of hope that things can change, that they are totally devoted to you, that they do love you. And they say something so sweet or do something so generous, you feel like maybe this can work out. And, over time, that period of time where you think things could get better, those get shorter and shorter. And you get this you feel broken, and you have an undercurrent of depression because you feel like, is this the best that life is? Always having these ups and downs, always having to be on guard, always having to be alert, watching for the next time that things are going to be really terrible. Is that the way life is supposed to be? It can feel really depressing. So if you're there, I'm so sorry, and I know that you want out of this position, and that's what I do now. I help people get out of this position because it is so painful, and it took years for me to break that trauma bond. I would say since my marriage started, but for sure 10 years it took, because we separated and then we got back together, and for 10 years I tried to make things better or get away, and it was just really hard. So I finally was able to walk away without any resignation or remorse. And here are the 5 things that helped me. I'm going to get right into those because I know I've been talking for a while. So the number one thing is education about abuse. I did not realize that some of the things that were going on in my relationship were abusive, like criticism. I didn't realize that that was a type of verbal abuse. I always took it as, somebody giving advice and just trying to help you, but it's not. It's, things that they shouldn't have an opinion on, and it's abusive. I started reading everything I could on difficult relationships, toxic personalities. I learned the patterns that a argument in a toxic relationship follows. There's certain patterns, and they all have the same patterns. So once you learn about it, you can sit there during an argument and go, oh, yep, that's happening. Yeah, now that, yes, that's the next thing, and so on. I educated myself on the hurtful behaviors that personality disorder partners use to keep you stuck. And one of the very first books I read that helped me so much was The Verbally Abusive Relationship by Patricia Evans. And I will link that in the comments because if you haven't read it yet, you should. I read it twice. I think maybe I even started on a third time, but that book was really helpful for me. I remember at the beginning of it, she was talking about a situation that she had with a man that was there for one of her conferences. And I was just thinking, that's abuse? That didn't hit me as abuse. But as I thought about it, it was very rude behavior. So I don't know, read the book and see what you think. But number 2 is self-care. And I know everybody talks about self-care. I know that's a huge thing. And when we think about self-care, we think of, all the general things. Take a bath, get your nails done, hang out with friends, all that stuff. But really, self-care is taking care of yourself. When you're in a toxic relationship, you let that slide a lot of times because you are making sure the other person is happy. You're making sure they're happy because you want to lessen your pain. If you can keep them from, blowing up and having a large argument, then you do what you can to make sure that they're happy. But once you start putting some time aside for yourself, that's when you can start building your confidence. You can build yourself up physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And the way I did this is I started waking up at 5 a.m. And I know that's early. I had a really hard time doing it, but I figured out that nobody was awake in my home at 5 a.m., including the toxic person, and he wouldn't be awake for hours. So during that time, I was able to do yoga, meditate, read books about self-development, spirituality. I was able to just peacefully relax in my home. And even when I was teaching full-time, I still had about an hour and a half to myself, hour and 15 minutes, somewhere around there. And that changed my life because it changed the way I was able to focus during the day. It changed, I just felt peaceful, and that may have something to do with that ADHD part, but I believe every single person can do well with having that much time to themselves every day. I think everybody can benefit from that. So I also prioritized sleep, which I had to do if I was going to wake up at 5 a.m. because that was difficult. So I had to make sure I was asleep or at least lights out by 10 p.m. at night. And I began eating healthier. That was a big one for me too. Okay, so number 3 is I got support. And I got support through a therapist. I got support through different coaches. I had a couple of different coaches that helped me. And I got support by a 12-step program for codependency. And with that program, even though I think I do have a little bit of codependency, but even if you don't have codependency, I believe that those type of groups can help anybody because they teach you to relinquish control of things that are out of your control. So, if I'm trying to control this other person in my life that's harming me by people pleasing, by changing my behavior, then that's not how I should be handling life, because I can't control what another person does. So once I started relinquishing that attempt to control and paying more attention to me and the things that I can control within myself, it didn't necessarily help with that toxic person, maybe a little bit, but it helped me. It helped build my confidence because I started to trust myself. I am taking care of me now. I'm standing up for me. I'm going to be the one that has my back. So that really helped me. Plus, I had all these women that I started to see over time and make friendships with, and just knowing that on this day, at this time, I could go to this meeting and be with friends, be with other people that understood me. That made a huge difference. Okay, number 4 is values. This is something that I just did not pay attention to in my previous 2 relationships. I just completely let it go to the wayside. But at the suggestion of one of my coaches, she said, write down your top 10 values. And so I started thinking about it, what are values? What are my values? I found a list online. There's one by James Clear. There's several. You can just Google values list and you'll come up with one. But I wrote down my values. You can write down your top 10 and then, narrow it down to your top 5. You could have 10 if you want, whatever. But on the top of my list was honesty. And why was I letting this person in my life lie to me all the time if honesty was one of my biggest values? And why was I lying to this person if honesty is one of my biggest values? That was a huge eye-opener for me. I was lying. I know why I was lying. I was lying because I was afraid of his reaction a lot of times. So I would just tell a little white lie, like, it was on sale, or I had to get it because of blah, 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 and I didn't feel good about that because honesty is one of my main values. So when I started to think about those things and realize that I'm in a relationship that is making me go against my core values. There were several. Another was family. Family was my number one value. So I had let him isolate me from family members. And so that was huge. The honesty, the family, I don't remember what all my values are that I wrote down at the moment, but those were some big ones. And this relationship wasn't supporting that. How could I continue in a relationship that's not supporting my most important values? So that was a big one that helped me break the trauma bond. Number 5 is purpose. My purpose has always been to help other people. It started when I became a teacher. Before that, I loved babysitting kids and, helping moms. I, worked in daycares. I even worked in restaurants. I loved just helping people. That's just something that was huge to me. So I was struggling with that because I was so exhausted from this one relationship in my life that was causing so much struggle. It was affecting my purpose in such a meaningful way. And so when I took control of that and I started working on my purpose more, putting it more front and center, I went and got my coaching certification. I began working with a wellness company. I started defining who I want to help in the future. Thinking about who eventually, when I make enough money, the people that I want to help with that money. And I knew my life had meaning beyond this one relationship that was hurting me. So that was a big eye-opener. So those 5 things really helped me: education, self-care, support, values, and purpose. So I just got to a slide that doesn't go to this presentation. Okay, so not everyone gets in a trauma bond. You may be concerned that you're going to meet up with another abusive person in the future and you're going to get in a trauma bond with them, but it doesn't always happen. The reason we get in a trauma bond depends on the length of time that we're exposed to this person and the severity of the abuse. So, don't worry that this is going to happen to you again, especially if you work on those 5 things that we just talked about. You can build your confidence and strengthen your ability to avoid future trauma bonds by doing those 5 things, making them priority. Also, I just want to mention, if this is something you know you're struggling with, I do have one-on-one coaching packages. I'll put a link in the show notes. I have a group program called Becoming Conscious, and in that program, I walk you through each of those 5 things, plus there's a few more in there. We have weekly Q&A calls. There's so much to that program. I spent a lot of time working on it. There's videos, there's exercises to help you go through. It's short lessons each week. It's a 12-week program, short lessons, but very beneficial in helping you get unstuck and helping you move forward. Even if you decide you're not ready to leave your relationship, or you can't leave your relationship for some reason, that program will help you, as well as my coaching. But I just wanted to mention those. And just know that if you are in a trauma bond, it is not your fault, okay? It is not your fault. You were victimized by somebody that was targeting you for your loving, gentle kindness. Your reaction to the abuse was a trauma response. Your brain was trying to keep you safe. And the way it did that was by helping you find something positive in this relationship, helping you to please this person more so that they didn't harm you. Whether they would have or not, your brain thought that they are harming you. I would argue they were, even if it was just emotional or verbal, it's still harmful. So you just happen to meet up with a really skilled manipulator, you know, somebody that has practiced manipulating, coercing, bullying people all of their life from a very young age. And you maybe even had some of this people pleasing and, you know, knowing that you had to appease your abuser. That may have been ingrained in you from childhood. You might have had a caregiver that was that way. So, and when you're a child, you have to get your basic needs met. So your brain learned, I have to appease this person so that I can get food, water, shelter. And now it's just a subconscious response. But you can't get out of it if you practice those 5 things that we talked about. So just know there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Don't feel ashamed about the position you're in, and don't feel ashamed about asking for help, because we all need each other. That's why community is such a huge thing for your health. And we found that out during COVID when we were all separated from each other. People's health really declined. So anyways, I'll get off that soapbox. But thank you so much for joining today. And if you haven't subscribed, please do that. And I will see you in the next video.